You ever get that feeling like you're digging through research and then bam, there's this concept, it just clicks?
It's like striking gold.
Exactly. And today we're going deep on one of those golden concepts, the thesis statement.
Ah, the mighty thesis statement, often relegated to a dusty corner of the writing process.
Right. Like it's just this formality, this box you got to check. But we're going to dust it off today because, let's be real, a strong thesis statement, that's the backbone of any good piece of writing.
It's the foundation upon which your entire argument rests.
So for anyone who's been digging into the research on this, and I know you're out there, get ready for some serious aha moments. We're going way beyond the basics here.
We're talking about crafting thesis statements that don't just summarize, they captivate.
That's what I love about the research you've been looking at. It really pushes us beyond that simple definition, A thesis statement tells the reader what your paper is about. Okay, great, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Right. It's not just about stating the what, it's about revealing the how. How you're going to approach the topic, your unique interpretation, that's what makes a thesis statement sing.
And that's where things get interesting, because suddenly you're not just presenting information, you're putting forth an argument, a perspective.
You're inviting the reader to see the topic through your lens.
One of the sources you shared put it this way. A thesis statement isn't about stating a fact. It's about revealing your interpretation of that fact. And that really resonated with me.
Because it transforms the thesis statement from a passive summary into an active engagement with the material.
Yes. And it's that engagement that hooks the reader. It's like the difference between saying, the Mona Lisa is a famous painting.
Which, let's be honest, is a bit of a snooze fest.
Right. Versus saying, the Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile, captured through Da Vinci's innovative sfumato technique, continues to captivate viewers centuries later.
Suddenly I'm leaning in. I want to know more. And that's the power of a strong thesis statement. It doesn't just inform, it intrigues.
It's like a preview for your brain, right? Giving you a taste of the insights to come. And you know what else really struck me while I was going through this research? The idea that a thesis statement isn't just there to guide the reader, it's a lifeline for the writer, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get lost in the weeds when you're writing, especially with a complex topic. But a strong thesis statement acts as your compass, keeping you oriented, preventing you from veering off course.
I don't know how many times I've written an entire paragraph, only to realize it had nothing to do with my main argument. If I had had a stronger thesis statement, I would have seen that G-tour coming a mile away.
Exactly. Think of your thesis statement as that trusty map you take on a road trip. Sure, you might take a detour or two along the way, but that map always helps you find your way back to the main route, ensuring you reach your final destination. And that brings us to the anatomy of a truly effective thesis statement, because it's not just about what you're arguing, it's about how you're going to prove it.
And this is where some of those aha moments really started firing for me. Because one of the sources, it breaks it down so clearly, almost like a simple equation, what you plan to argue.
Plus, how you plan to argue it.
Equals a well-structured thesis statement.
I love that. It seems so obvious when you put it like that, but having that clear framework in mind can make a world of difference.
So we've got this great equation now, but equations are one thing. Seeing it all come together in an actual thesis statement, that's what I'm really curious about.
Well, let's take a concrete example. Imagine you're writing a historical analysis, right, about the fall of the Roman Empire.
Okay, I'm with you.
And let's say your initial thesis statement is something like, the Roman Empire collapsed due to a complex interplay of factors.
Okay, it's getting the job done, but it feels a little surface level, maybe?
Exactly. It's stating the what, but it's missing that crucial how. Where's your unique interpretation, the lens you're bringing to this complex event?
Right, it's like saying a cake is made of ingredients. Technically true, but not very appetizing.
Exactly. So, how can we spice things up? How about this? While often attributed to barbarian invasions, the decline of the Roman Empire stemmed primarily from internal factors, such as political corruption and economic instability, which ultimately eroded its foundations.
Okay, now we're talking. Suddenly I'm seeing the fall of the Roman Empire in a whole new light. It's not just about those external forces, it's about the cracks in the foundation.
And there you have it. The what, internal factors leading to decline, and the how, emphasizing corruption and instability as primary drivers.
It's like you've given me a new map, a new way to navigate this historical event. And speaking of maps, that brings us to another key point in your research. The importance of crafting a thesis statement that is inherently arguable.
Ah, yes. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
Because if we're just stating the obvious, there's no real discussion to be had, right?
Exactly. A good thesis statement has an element of risk to it. It puts forth an interpretation that could be challenged, debated, even refuted. And that's what makes it engaging for the reader.
So going back to our Roman Empire example, saying something like the Roman Empire was vast and powerful, that's not really a thesis statement, is it?
Not quite. It's more of a statement of fact. It doesn't offer a unique perspective or open the door for debate.
It's like saying the sky is blue. Sure, it's true, but where do you go from there?
Exactly. A good thesis statement is an invitation to a lively discussion, a chance for you to present your interpretation and for the reader to engage with those ideas, even push back against them.
And that pushback, that's a good thing, right? It means you've sparked their curiosity, gotten them thinking critically.
Absolutely. And, one of your sources dives into this really interesting step-by-step process for crafting a compelling thesis statement. And they use the example of television violence and children.
Oh, yes, this is where I had a big aha moment, because they talk about the importance of anticipating counterarguments,
Yeah.
which honestly I hadn't really been doing consistently in my own writing.
It's a common stumbling block. We get so focused on our own argument, our own perspective, that we forget to consider other viewpoints.
It's like I'm so busy building my own house that I forget to look out the window and see what my neighbors are building.
I love that analogy. But here's the thing. Addressing those counter arguments head on, that's what elevates a thesis statement from good to great. It shows that you've considered multiple angles, weighed the evidence, and arrived at your conclusion thoughtfully.
It's like you're not just presenting your side of the story, you're acknowledging that other perspectives exist and then skillfully weaving them into your own argument.
Exactly. And your source illustrates this beautifully with the television violence example. They start with a rather basic thesis. Violence on television increases aggressive behavior in children.
Okay, a good starting point, but
But
yeah.
where's the nuance? Where's the engagement with those opposing viewpoints? Exactly. So they take it a step further by anticipating a counter-argument. While some argue that violence in media merely reflects existing societal issues.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Because they're acknowledging that this is a complex issue with multiple perspectives.
Precisely. And instead of shying away from that complexity, they lean into it, crafting a more nuanced and arguably more persuasive thesis. Quote, while some argue that violence in media merely reflects existing societal issues, repeated exposure to such content can, in fact, desensitize young viewers to violence and make them more likely to perceive aggression as an acceptable solution to conflict.
Wow. It's like they took that initial thesis statement and injected it with a dose of intellectual rigor.
And
By acknowledging and then subtly dismantling that counter-argument, they've created a thesis that is both more compelling and more persuasive.
it's like a perfectly executed chess move, anticipating your opponent's strategy and countering it before they even make a move.
I'm starting to realize that this goes way beyond academic writing. This is about communication, about persuasion.
Absolutely. Whether you're writing an academic paper, crafting a marketing pitch, or even just trying to win an argument with a friend, these principles hold true.
So we've talked about the what and the how,
Hmm.
the importance of being arguable and anticipating counter-arguments. What other qualities should we be striving for in our quest for the perfect thesis statement?
Well, one of your sources dives into a whole list of criteria, but there are three I find particularly essential: substantial, precise, and of course, as we've discussed, arguable.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's unpack those a bit. Substantial. I feel like that's about choosing a topic that has some meat to it, right? Something that can really sustain an entire argument.
You've got it. A substantial thesis statement goes beyond the obvious, beyond the surface level. It tackles a question that's complex enough to warrant genuine exploration and debate. For example, instead of a thesis like, social media has impacted our lives, which, let's be honest, is a bit vague.
And we've all heard that one before.
Exactly. A more substantial thesis might be, while social media platforms have undoubtedly fostered global interconnectedness, their addictive algorithms and curated feeds have contributed to a decline in meaningful face-to-face interactions.
Okay, yeah, I see the difference. That second one is so much richer, so much more specific.
And that brings us to our next key quality: precise. A strong thesis statement uses language that is clear, concise, and avoids vague generalizations.
It's about choosing your words carefully, making every word count.
Exactly. Remember, clarity is key. One of your sources put it beautifully. The best thesis statement is a balance of specific details and concise language.
I love that. Okay, so we've got substantial, we've got precise, and we've already covered arguable. These feel like the pillars of a thesis statement that truly stands out. But aren't there also some common myths or misconceptions about thesis statements that can trip us up along the way?